What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Hoops with Miles, where today we will be starting another new series where I talk about the Hall of Fame chances of certain NBA players for when they retire. I will be looking at active NBA players who have borderline cases for the Hall of Fame after they retire and make my argument for why or why not I believe they should be in the Hall of Fame. This first video will have a longer beginning part as I will explain my criteria to make the Hall of Fame and the type of numbers I will be using when looking at these types of players. Going forward in this series, I will be referencing these numbers, but not nearly as in depth as in this video. This first video will be about one of my favorite players of all time who has a sneakily interesting case to make the Hall of Fame, this player being Derrick Rose. Before we get into Derrick Rose's case, let's take a look at my statistics and accolades needed to be around a Hall of Famer. A lot of these statistics were found online, whether that be from basketballreference.com or other sites where they list the accolades of certain players. To start, let's make this very clear that it's not just the NBA Hall of Fame, but it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So they look at players' collegiate, overseas, and Olympic careers when factoring them in to Hall of Fame probability. While this is important to remember for a lot of players, usually NBA stats and accolades mean more when weighted against other factors. So I will be putting more of a weight on these NBA numbers. But for players like Arvydas Sabonis, who didn't play in the NBA until he was around the age of 40, this helped his case to make the Hall of Fame. Overall, though, I will be using NBA stats and accolades as my baseline, while also mentioning their other accolades from their time overseas or their college careers to help bolster their resume. Starting with the accolades, it is expected that all of these players win around 2 championships, have about half an MVP, make around 7 All-Star games, and are All-NBA first team twice to 3 times, second team twice, and third team once. Obviously, there are a lot of players that don't have some of these accolades while being really good in other accolades, such as Charles Barkley having no rings, but having an MVP and being one of the best rebounding big men of all time. These accolades are subjective, and while you don't need to be perfect in these accolades to make the Hall of Fame, it's just a baseline for where you should be. When looking at the statistics for all Hall of Fame players, they should be hovering around 18 points per game, 7 total rebounds a game, and 3 assists a game, while averaging around a steal and a block, and shooting around 45% from the field and 30% from 3, while being about a 75% free throw shooter. They should also have around 100 win shares and around 0.15 win shares per 48 minutes. Out of all of these statistics, the one I will be grading more harshly is 3-point percentage, as we're looking at modern players in a game where the 3-point shot is way more relevant, and these statistics factor in players who both didn't play when the 3-point line was a thing, or players who weren't around when the 3-point line was made, and the percentages of players who took 1 3 in their career and shot 0%. I will be holding these modern players to a higher standard of 3-point shooting because when the 3-point line was introduced, it wasn't as big a factor in the game as it is today. Now looking at Derrick Rose, he has a very interesting case because he was the youngest MVP of all time and had a few great seasons, but then had his career derailed by injury. To quickly go over his career accolades, he has 1 MVP in 2011, which made him the youngest MVP of all time. He was All-NBA first team in 2011 as well, and in his rookie year in 2009, he made the All-Rookie first team and won Rookie of the Year. Derrick Rose never played in the Olympics, but he won 2 gold medals with the men's basketball team during the FIBA World Cup. Derrick Rose also didn't win anything during his college career, but was a finalist for many awards and led his team to the NCAA championship where they lost to Kansas. For his career, he averaged 17.4 points per game, 3 rebounds a game, and 5.2 assists per game, while shooting 45% from the field and 31% from the three, and then 83% from the free throw line. Now, if we compare him to other Hall of Famers, he doesn't have the 2 rings that the Hall of Famers on average have, but he does have an MVP, which puts him ahead of a lot of other Hall of Famers. Most Hall of Famers have around 7 All-Star Game appearances, while Derrick Rose only has 3, and he only made 1 All-NBA first team, as compared to the average of 2.4, and never made another All-NBA team. He won the Rookie of the Year, which not all Hall of Famers have, but overall, he's lacking in overall accolades. Statistics-wise, he's right around average for a Hall of Famer, averaging the 17 points that are needed to be a Hall of Famer, only averaging around 3 rebounds as compared to the 7 that is average for Hall of Famers, but being a small guard, that makes a lot of sense, and that shows in the fact that he averages 2 more assists than the average Hall of Famer. His averages from the field, shooting-wise, are almost identical to the average Hall of Famer. But with all that being said, you have to keep in mind that he played a lot of seasons coming off of injuries, and as a backup because of the risk of injury that he had. So there's a lot of seasons in his late career that have brought down his averages from the stellar averages he had to start his career. For example, in his MVP season, he averaged 25 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds, which are much better numbers than his averages for his career. But when you look at his most recent season, in 2023 and 24, he only averaged 8 points, 1 rebound, and 3 assists. So these later seasons brought down his numbers significantly. Now to give my opinion on whether I think Derrick Rose should be a Hall of Famer, I would say that he for sure should. This is a case we've never seen before, when a player starts their career so hot with so much promise, becoming the youngest MVP of all time, and then having his career derailed by injuries. This hasn't been seen with a player of his caliber ever before in the NBA, so it's a weird case. This begs the question of whether the Basketball Hall of Fame would be willing to leave out a former league MVP. While other sports such as baseball leave out MVPs all the time because they put more of a weight on counting stats, the NBA doesn't put as much into these counting stats as baseball does. The Basketball Hall of Fame is objectively easier to make than other Hall of Fames, and the fact that Derrick Rose has an MVP gives him a great shot to make it. What I believe also helps his case is that he's well loved in the basketball community, and a lot of people sympathize with his story. While he wasn't a Hall of Famer for his entire career, and wasn't even at an all-star level for many years, he was one of the most dominant young players we've ever seen, and was the best player in the league for at least 1 season. While I don't think he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer or make it in his first year of eligibility, I don't see the Basketball Hall of Fame leaving out one of its MVPs, so I do believe he will eventually make it. While Derrick Rose's career is a tragedy, I do think he's done enough to win over voters and make the Hall of Fame, and I do believe that one day he should be inducted. With that being said, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please watch my Kings rant on why they've been struggling this year, and be on the lookout for more Hall of Fame or not videos.